Well, hello YouTube. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're all doing good. For those of you who don't know, my name is Leo, and I will be your humble host today on a little trip through time. As most of you know, we've done a few stories about famous people. We've took you to Graceland to see Elvis and Johnny Cash and Devil Ants and Hatfield and all sorts of well-known people. But most of the people that we showcase, we'll put it that way, that we highlight, are people just like you and me. And we've got one for you today that is a little bit of a lost story. And I think you guys will really like this one. I really do. But I guess I may as well just go ahead and get into it. But I would ask one little favor. I just climbed a whole bunch of stairs, and it's about 97. My car says it's 97. So bear with me just a little bit. I'm still a little bit out of breath from the stairs. Today, like I said, we have a different kind of story for you guys. It was passed to us by a friend named Joe Clark, and we'll put a link down in the description. He has a vlog and has a lot of other stories as well. And this story here, it has all the things that make a story really worth telling. Rising from the worst situation you can possibly imagine to not only survive but excel in life. I honestly think that sometimes people get so hung up on what they feel went wrong with their lives that they fail to see the big picture and what went right. If you're still here, you might as well keep trying to carve out some happiness for yourself and your family, even if you do have to drag it back home kicking and screaming. Today, we are at the Dill Cemetery in Pikeville, Kentucky, where famed Hatfield-McCoy feud patriarch Randall McCoy is buried from the Hatfield-McCoy feud. And that's him right there, his wife Sarah, and Roseanne right there. Colonel Dill's, a staunch abolitionist, is right up here on the hill. That's his grave right up on the hill. There's a whole bunch of Civil War graves here. This is a very obviously a very historic graveyard. But we are here for a specific reason. Our story isn't about Randall at all, but let me first let me show you a sign here. Okay, do you see the names? Let me get around to the back of it. Do you see the last names on all of these right here? Okay, these are the last names of slave owners that were transferred to the slaves. The slaves lost their last names and their family identity. Now, do you see the Ratliffs? Okay, now that will come into play in a minute. That'll matter just here in a minute. Now today we are here for a man named Frank Waller, and that's his grave right there. Let me get a little closer so you guys can actually see it. And if you come up here, it's the one with the little cross hatches on the bottom and says Waller. This is a very historic grave, guys, but this is one you've never heard about. You've heard of a lot of the other people here, but you haven't heard about this one. Most of the information about Frank is long gone or was never recorded at all The information that we have about this man is from our own research and several other sources like census records and so on. Frank here was born in Virginia on March 15th in 1845. The exact location is not known, but his mom was Julia McClure, who was most likely enslaved by a man named Alexander McClure. Trying to nail down which Alexander it was at this point would be guessing, honestly. Henry Waller and Julia had been living together as husband and wife for 30 years in 1867. But they could not be legally married until after the Civil War. Their marriage was legally recognized on May 16th, 1867, when they lived in Union County, Kentucky. We know that Frank was also a slave at one point and is said to have been a personal aide to Confederate General Thomas Stonewall Jackson. And there's even a story that Frank here actually served General Jackson his very last meal. But the question remains, was he actually an aide, or was he a slave? We don't know for sure, but the time period involved certainly points to the latter. At some point, he moved here to Pikeville, Kentucky after the Civil War as a free man. On September 10th, 1872, at 27 years old, he married Alvindia Ratliff, who was 21. They called her Sibby. Just found her. She's right here, right behind him, right beside of him. She was previously enslaved by the Ratliff family here in Pike County. She's listed in some census as mulatto. One says white and another says black, but she was half white, which means her father almost had to be one of her family's previous enslavers. So Frank and Sibby decided to marry and start a family. And by 1890, they had 3 children: Alfred, Rosa, and their youngest daughter named Effie. Frank Waller here established himself as both a respected blacksmith and a real estate speculator soon after his arrival here in the Chloe Creek community. This mountain community was very unique in comparison to other communities of the time, in that it was much more racially integrated than most places. This area's welcoming attitude, coupled with Waller's early training as a blacksmith while still a slave, helped him to become financially successful and earn the respect of his neighbors, both white and black. The Wallers, realizing the hardships caused by their own limited education, decided that their children would receive the best quality education available to them at the time. Effie completed 8th grade at a local school, just as her older siblings Alfred and Rosa had done. And then she attended the Kentucky Normal School for Colored Persons. That was the name of it, in Frankfort, Kentucky. From 1900 to 1902, she trained to be a teacher, after which she is known to have taught school on and off for many years in Kentucky and in Tennessee. That same year, she married a man called Liss Cockrell, but the marriage didn't last long, ending in her divorcing him. In 1908, she married again to Deputy Sheriff Charles Smith, but this happy union was also short-lived. as he was killed in 1911 while serving a warrant on a moonshiner. Effie went on to become one of the greatest African American poets of the early 20th century, which was difficult for any female at the time, no less one born to slaves. She published her first book of poetry, Songs of the Months, in 1904. In 1909, she published 2 more books of poetry, Rhymes of the Cumberland and Rosemary and Pansies. Her work last appeared in Harper's Ferry magazine in 1917. After Frank Waller here died in 1916 of a stroke, Sibby and their daughter Effie left Pikeville, Kentucky and moved to Waukesha, Wisconsin. Effie had adopted the daughter of a deceased friend at this point named Ruth. Effie lived with her mother in a communal resident hall of the Metropolitan Holiness Church Association. But by 1924, Effie and Sibby were disillusioned with the commune and left. Effie and Sibby moved out of the commune and purchased a home in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where Sibby lived until her death. She never published poetry again and never remarried. Her son, Alfred Tennyson Waller, was in the Spanish-American War, Company A, 8th Regiment, United States Voluntary Infantry, and eventually died in a veterans hospital at the age of 60. We don't know what became of Rosa. Can you imagine the life that this man lived? He was a slave, and then he became a free man and moved here to Pike County, and for the next 40 years he started a business, became a successful local businessman, and earned the respect and admiration of the entire community. Now this spot here, I've brought you guys over here and I've shown you this spot before. This little place right here, this is the slave section at Dill Cemetery. Now if you look right here, remember I said that Colonel Dills was a staunch abolitionist, the man right up there at the top of the hill? The Dill Cemetery. The Dill Cemetery is believed to be the first integrated cemetery in eastern Kentucky. Colonel John Dills, who was opposed to slavery, gave many freed slaves jobs in his tannery and general store. He later provided grave sites for them and their descendants. While more than 130 African American graves have been located in this historic spot, only 49 of those have been correctly identified. It is our hope that further investigation will bring to light the remaining names and stories. The Dill Cemetery research product has been conducted through funds, anyway. I just wanted to show you guys that at a time, this is the 1860s, okay, 1870s. There were a lot of attitudes throughout the country, we'll just say. But here in Pikeville, on Chloe Creek, in this area, he was given a new lease on life, literally, and brought his family into a whole new world of prosperity, freedom, all the things that you and I take for granted. This man had to work really hard and long, and like I mentioned earlier, probably endured things that you and I can't even imagine. A lot of people give West Virginia and Kentucky a bad rap. They really do. Hillbilly this, hillbilly that. I'm sure y'all have heard it, toothless hillbillies. I know you have. But the area itself, there's a lot of really good people here. They're down to earth, normal, everyday people who have a lot bigger problems than that. And when the time came, the man was welcomed. And look what happened. He and his wife did really well. They contributed to their community. They did really good things. And then their daughter went on to become a famous poet. You know, one of the most celebrated of her time. So, to me, that is worthy of note. That is worthy of being featured on this or any other channel. There are, like I said, there's a lot of people here who did extraordinary things and had extraordinary things happen to them. Frank is one of them. And right here, I didn't show you guys a close-up of this one yet. This is not supposed to be here. She is not supposed to be here according to Find a Grave. She's not here at all. Alvindia. Alvindia. That's her. She is here indeed. So, I guess when we get home, we need to... You can't change a Find a Grave someone else made. Do a little bit of research and see which one's real. That's the best that we can do for Sibby. You know, if her friends called her Sibby, her friends called her Sibby, so we're going to call her Sibby as well. Anyway, guys, like I said, I just wanted to bring you out here today and introduce you guys to Mr. Frank Waller. Fine American. It's a beautiful spot, though. A beautiful place. My apologies, guys. My camera keeps overheating and shutting down on me. Like I said, it's really hot. I've been wiping my face like crazy. Thank you guys for watching. We very much appreciate you guys. Thank you to all of our supporters, Patreons, and all of you folks. We very much appreciate you guys. And I just hope, I know that you guys will agree with me that this man and his wife and their family deserves to be remembered. And the sad part is that he's laid right beside all of these other people who've either had their names changed or have no name at all. Most of them have a number. This one is 236. So in a way, Frank is at least lucky that he has a headstone. He had someone to remember him. But most of these people don't. Most of them didn't. And that's the sad part. Anyway, alright, I'm going to get out of here, guys. God bless you. And we'll see you guys next time on the Hillbilly Files. P.O out.